The opinions expressed in the following are those of its participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the producers and the Six Talk Podcast Network. Also, the following contains mature material and mild language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
This is the Anime Roundtable Canada, presented by Anime North, on the Saturday evening, July 16th, 2022. You can contact us online on the web, animeroundtable.com. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Anime Roundtable, and you can email us, animeroundtable@gmail.com. Your phone's buzzing, by the way.
Was that me?
Yes, it was.
Oh, it was me.
Good evening once again as we wind down night number 2 here at Anime North in the Toronto West End. We are in the Delta Hotel, in the Halton Room, in a little corner beside the staff lounge. So we apologize to any audience member who is presently in here looking for food. That's next door. Mike Nicholas, Kevin Ng, and Amy Gregg are along for the ride on night number 2. They both decide to show up. James is still out, but he did have some comments, and we'll share them a bit later. Let's get right to it. There's some news. So I'm sure anyone here has been keeping up with some of the lineups that have been going on here over the weekend, and maybe that's an understatement. You can agree or disagree. Nod, shake.
Variety of lineups.
Oh, there's a bunch. Okay.
Well, like the main one that I think you talked about yesterday, for sure, I think it's still to some degree making news. But the ones I've noticed most have been the food lineups. They've ebbed and flowed, but I don't think I've seen the Ginkgo lineup quite that long. It's always long.
Yes, I did notice that when we were coming out of the panel a little earlier this morning.
No, it got longer than
after
that.
I left.
Oh yeah, when I was walking by, it went to the other rooms and snaked a little bit.
Well, now the snaking around seems to be a bit of a theme as well. Over the last couple hours, Anime North has released statements on their various social media accounts. I'll quote the Twitter account, which was released 2 hours ago. Due to very strong sales, we have had to cap all admission sales in order to manage crowding at the convention and are no longer available online or at the door. This is unprecedented. That'll mean that there is no Sunday tickets tomorrow. I spoke with James on the phone just before I came down here earlier. And I asked him, because he's sort of in the know of this stuff, what has been the attendance figures in recent years for Anime North? And he said that, looking it up on Wiki, there's nothing there, but he would have imagined that 2019 would have gotten between 30 to 35,000. The 2018 show finished just short of 35,000. It was, according to Wikipedia, 34,590.
Individual?
We presume. I mean, I don't know what figures into the number. Is it passes, total number of passes bought? Is it staff? Does that figure in the number? So I guess we can have that debate at some other point. When Chris from social media did the show last night, he had hinted they were caught a little bit off guard, didn't anticipate this, and they are anticipating that the numbers will be comparable to 2019.
And I've heard it's potentially the biggest Anime North ever.
Yeah, I think if I'm to make a guess, And I haven't seen too much because I admit I haven't been on campus on the compound as much to date. But just reading some of the social media posts and all those pictures, I think it's reasonable to think that Anime North will finally hit the 35,000 mark for the first time in history, and that's quite the feat, generally speaking. But considering the last 2 years. Yeah, that's one hell of a way to return from the pandemic. And
I really hope that it's benefited the vendors and specifically the artists that are there, because they've had 2.5, 3 years of reduced sales, to say the least. Like, I know that Anime North tried to promote them online, but that's probably not going to go too far.
It didn't.
Yeah, so it must be, or hopefully it's amazing for them and they're selling out and things go well.
I remember coming in on Friday night for Nominoichi, and I was cutting it close as usual.
well, better than I did, actually.
And I guess, I'm thinking maybe this was because they wanted the lines more spread apart for social distancing purposes, but I have never seen them stretch the line past the north side of the Congress Center building, like the other building.
Oh, as in the North Building itself.
Yes. Like, I had to go to some ass backwards parking lot, like literally at the back. I didn't even know this spot existed until Friday night.
Is it along Martin Grove, or is it even behind the North Building?
It's it's behind North Building. Like, there's no exit way. There's no exit way to Martin Grove from where I was, because
You had to go completely around.
Yes, the path to Martin Grove is in between the two buildings. But I was behind that.
Yeah. Okay. I think I've seen it before,
I had
actually.
to drag 4 crates of my stuff.
I was parked last night near Martin Grove myself. So imagine that, bringing my stuff, going back, and then bringing the podcast equipment all the way here.
Yeah,
That was a 20-minute walk. I was sweating through my shirt by that point because it was that warm.
it was really sweaty there, and I was a little concerned with how crowded it was.
Yeah.
Like, concern just from like a pandemic point of view, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, it might finally happen to me now.
I think it is like excellent foresight as far as keeping the mask mandate in place, because I feel like there was probably a big amount of people, or a large amount of people, who were thinking like, oh, things are getting better, everyone's taking mask mandates away, why is it staying? And then, with things as they are in the world right now, I think it ended up being sort of a very good, bad thing, your perspective, whatever. But I think it will put a lot of people at ease, make people feel safer, regardless of how effective you think it is. I think it will have an impact, and I think that's, it ended up being an amazing thing.
Of course it's going to be a talking point. Talking with James earlier, he told me about the policies that'll happen at upcoming conventions, I think in Manitoba and then Otakuthon in Montreal. He said that isn't as much there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So this will get a little bit interesting. And of course we know about what happened at Anime Expo. Before we get to maybe day 2 impressions, and maybe Kevin and I can talk Nominoichi, or the Nominoichi experience. Amy.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
To the listener, am I allowed to say this?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
To the listeners out there, and to the listeners in this room, I'm going to introduce to you Amy Gregg, who, if you listened to the recording I put up on Thursday night, has come out to us as trans.
Yeah.
As transgender. So, thank you for that. That was, it was a listen, not always the most comfortable thing to listen to, but in a good way, because it was very thought-provoking. I know Mohammed has messaged the group showing his support. I know James. He probably hasn't been in touch, but he was touched by your monologue, by your On My Mind, and I was too. Please know you have our support. I know that, speaking for a lot of the people who run Anime North, you have their support already. Please also understand we're going to trip up in trying to understand what is going on here, or trying to understand a little bit more of what you're going through in your journey. And maybe there's at a point we'll talk a little bit more anecdotes, maybe some of my own experiences, because well, we are on the topic of 25 years at Anime North. A little more than 25 years ago, my eldest cousin came out of the closet as lesbian, and I was processing that at the time. So this is part of the banner now, and I know there's a lot of people who you will be able to find support, and thank you for doing this at Anime North, because I understand it sounded like you were comfortable to do it here. So
yeah.
Thanks.
And that was like a main part of why I decided to make the recording, because I was pretty sure at that point that I wanted to, I guess, be me for Anime North this year. And I didn't want to just suddenly come on the podcast like I usually do at the conventions. And suddenly there's like a new name with a sometimes similar voice with no explanation. And so, yeah, I wanted to make that recording. The only regret I have with making that recording is at the very end, I signed off with "and I'm out," and that was not an intentional pun. It's just a normal thing people say with like radio type things, and I realized it after and I cringed, and I'm like, oh my God, it's the most like cliche like thing ever, and everyone's gonna think that because it's like a coming out recording, and it's like, "and I'm out." It's like, are you kidding me?
That was a whoosh moment for me. I didn't even think of that until you said it right now.
It never really dawned upon me. So don't stress that part. What I didn't realize at the time in the recording is you talked about voice training.
Yeah.
I thought I'd ask about that for a second, just because that never really dawned upon me. I can see the logic now that you brought it up, but
Yeah.
it never really dawned upon me that you have to retrain your voice.
It's definitely a process like everything. I did hire a voice trainer local in Toronto, but of course, since all of this, at least the voice training aspect, started in the pandemic, it's of course been via Zoom or similar video conferencing. It's a lot of different exercises. I previewed one of like the passages for reading. Yeah. Any other specific questions about voice training?
No, I thought I'd just ask to start. Just to see, like, as I said, it just never dawned upon me. So I thought I'd just bring it up at the moment. There's a whole bunch of other thoughts I have. I mean, okay, I guess I'll tie it in. I'll tie this thought into the more, at least Japanese stuff, if not anime stuff. About 3-4 years ago, there was this NHK documentary about a high school student who was about to undergo transformation. And then he or she eventually was able to find support in her classmates. And then as she completed the transformation, she just thought, okay, this isn't where I want to be either. So by the end of the documentary, they are pretty much non-binary at that point. It was a pretty powerful piece. Unfortunately, I can't seem to find it now. I passed it on to people who I know are experiencing something in that realm. So, and if I find it, I will shuttle it to you in some form, because I thought it was a really, really well done piece, considering what we know about Japan and when it comes to LGBTQ issues.
We could probably fill like an hour or two on just that subject. Like, obviously, like,
you know what? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, like,
and I just want to acknowledge it.
Yeah, like as I said in the recording, like there are so many like weird things about Japan, like the fact that it is relatively safe for LGBT people, but when it comes to like getting a job, married, legal status, all that kind of stuff, it's still archaic. So
Yeah, we've brought it up before.
yeah.
And when we've talked various headlines. Okay, so let's get on to a little bit more, well, back on track. Where do you want to go? Do you want to talk Nominoichi or do you want to talk day 2 as a whole? Because, well, Kevin and I have been busy for much of day 2, not necessarily here. I only have one thing to talk about. We did Nominoichi last night after 2 years, or after, 3 years now. Mm-hmm. Okay, impressions, how'd you do?
I did pretty okay. Did better than I thought, to be honest.
Yeah.
I didn't get rid of a lot of manga, and which is usually the heaviest thing, but I'll be honest, I did not price my manga competitively on purpose.
You priced it to win.
I priced it to not make a loss.
Okay, there you go.
In the spirit of the flea market, depending on what the item was.
Yeah.
Certain things I did want to just get rid of, so some of those things were dirt cheap. But I will say I got rid of some of my items that took up bigger space. So I got rid of my Yakuza 6 Collector's Edition.
Good for
with the
you.
nice shot glasses. And I got rid of my Tanto Cuore game set, which I'm going to miss playing, but I thought it was just time to let it go, too. So
Yeah.
while they were lighter, but they took up a lot of space, so it was just nice to have that out of my hands.
For me, it was, I think I did sell a lot of things dirt cheap ultimately. But remember, when we went through the collection a couple weeks ago, when you and Mo visited, we ended up picking items that you knew that I wasn't nearly attached to, and thought was okay with very much letting go. So, you know, if you saw me that day, saw me last night, you'll know you probably got an okay deal off of me if there was something you wanted, right? And I'm not, you know, there's a bittersweet feeling with some of them. You do hold some degree of emotional attachment, but you also know, okay, what does it really do for you in the long run? So my 3 art books from Dead or Alive, this basically swimsuit issues, cool. Somebody got that, big Dead or Alive fan.
Nice.
Somebody there. My replicants.
That was surprising.
Somebody, you know what? It just wouldn't shock me if he's gonna flip them.
Are they actually worth anything? Like, not being sarcastic, just genuinely curious.
I don't know, but the thing is, if you were into models, like, I mean, that's a good cross section of history from the late '90s,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So-
you had some retro stuff in there, yeah.
Yeah. Kamichu gone.
Yeah, because
Fine,
Kamatsu never got re-released.
Yeah, I think this person who bought it was actually a fan too, for starters.
Oh.
I can see you in my dreams, the OVA and the television short series. Somebody had the TV series, but he said he never watched it because he had yet to see the OVA. And so he bought both off of me because I was only going to sell them as a set. And I just told him, the OVA is nice. If you watch that first, then dial down your expectations for the TV series, because the TV series isn't all that great at all, and it kind of reboots the story, to be quite honest with you. Other stuff I'm trying to remember that I sold in it: Romeo X Juliet, that was sealed. The Funimation releases that they did for Kodocha, found a fan, and I just asked her name a price, and it was a good price. So that went. I'm trying to remember some of it because a lot of it did go, and now what exactly they were is kind of blurry in my memory at my age. But I'm glad somebody found stuff that they wanted to find. I mean, High School Girls. Somebody wanted the DVD set, really pressed hard to haggle me down. He ultimately did. So okay, that's fine. But I want to sell that in the manga as well. But about 10 minutes later, somebody found the manga.
Oh, good.
And wanted it, and they ran off with it. And so lots of good stuff. I gave a deal on some old promotional material. that Central Park Media once did when they started to dabble in boys love stuff. So I mean, the list goes on, and overall, I'm happy with how it went. I came in with 2 boxes and very much had one by the time I left, after about an hour and a half, because I had to come here to tape in this little empty room. So there's my thing, and you know, the thing is, did I undercut myself? Did I sell things dirt cheap? Probably. Will I have plenty of second chances to make it up with anything else I intend to sell? Absolutely, because Kevin knows that.
Yes, you do.
There's plenty of second chances in the vault there.
You have so much shit, Mike.
It's disgusting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would need like 3 tables if you were to bring everything.
No, you might half a block. Half a block might be safe.
Yeah.
And then, or at the very least, an end table and the 2 surrounding tables on either side.
Like I think we barely went through a quarter of it, or like a third of it when Mo and I visited.
Quarter would have been ambitious. Okay. Other parts of day 2, because Amy,
Yeah.
what did you see on day 2?
So I think that after I visited you briefly, I did eventually, thankfully, get to see the Katsura Sunshine panel. So I forget if we've mentioned on the podcast. I think we have.
Mentioned. I pushed it, and this will be my regret from Anime North, because at the rate things are going, I will see nothing of Katsura Sunshine. And he has me very curious, because I've seen a lot of his interviews. I've seen some of the stuff he did for NHK World. And it was interesting. So I would have been curious to see the guy in person, but with the way my own personal schedule is set up, especially tomorrow when he does an actual traditional performance, I'm not totally sure I'll be able to see it, and that'll be a regret. But
yeah, I'm definitely going to try to get into that. Today's panel was pretty interesting. He was comparing anime series. I got in a little bit late, so I didn't get the title, but it was about Rakugo.
The anime that was about it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Descending Stories, Showa Rakugo Shinju. I'm missing one word towards the end, but yes, that's a very good series.
Yeah, it looked good even from the little clips, but he was going through it and talking about like what was accurate, what was inaccurate, and like sort of telling stories like relating to it. So like because there was like one scene where there's like the naming ceremony for apprentices.
Okay.
And it's this very like, formal thing where the master is like writing the name and giving them the name, and it was it's always like the master's surname. And then like a variation of that for the new apprentice's name.
Yeah, and
so
sorry to interrupt. I know that's part of his story too.
Yeah,
actually.
so like how he got Sunshine, which would be like sunshine in Japanese, like san as in 3, because like all the apprentices had 3, so san as part of their name. But yeah, it was a great. It was a great panel. He had a lot of his presentation skills that were like very much on display. Even though he was doing kind of a more traditional panel, it still kind of felt like storytelling throughout, which I think, was perfect.
Perfect for him. Is this one of those, would he have agreed with or been said this was plausible in his own experience type stuff?
For most of it, he was saying that because there's so much variation like between like Osaka and Tokyo, that it's a little bit unusual that I think there was one serious character and one more like bright character, because he was saying that usually you'd have like one style at one school. But it seemed like things were pretty accurate as far as well researched. At the end of the panel, someone asked a question if he thought that the actors were trained in like Rakugo style, and he was like, that's a great question, and the answer was probably not. But on purpose, because he was like, I'm not sure it would have been appealing, like for at least the anime directors to have like actual Rakugo style performance. And he said they probably could have if they needed to. Like, it would only take a week to fake it, pretty much, he said, or at least to train to get the cadence and like the rhythm. So like there's elements of it. Like, it wasn't like nothing, but you know, it also wasn't accurate to like how Rakugo is performed.
Okay.
Okay. Well, certainly it sounded like his senses were his own spidey senses were tingling.
Yeah, like
the whole
the
thing.
setting was similar,
So
like the theater, it was an accurate portrayal of that. He had stories about like that compared his experiences with the apprentices on the screen. So yeah, it was interesting.
As I said, I'm going to end up regretting it. Seriously, end up regretting it. So,
I always feel like with Anime North, the paneling is its strength. And by paneling, then this is not to denigrate the volunteer panelists that come every year, but the seasoned panelists that we get every year is a real treat.
oh yeah. So, yeah, it's just that as I said, my regret is it's just likely I'll be able to unfortunately miss it. So,
And a little
anything else?
Yeah, a little later I saw the YTV and its impact on the fandom panel.
Oh, how was that?
It was really good. Unfortunately, like as a media arts teacher, the PowerPoint presentation, I had a lot of suggestions that I kept to myself. But as far as like the knowledge base that the presenter had, it was fantastic.
Martin Hsu, I know who he is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but it was a great, like, everyone, I think it really appealed to like the audience. It was a packed house, and he was surprised that it filled up, because I think the last time he did a similar panel, it didn't quite fill up. So, but you know, people were cheering when they heard certain series, like, you know, just the mention of Sailor Moon got cheers. But other like series as well that were, you know, a little bit more surprising maybe. Metabots got to cheer, which was nice. But, you know, we talked about all the different connections about how, like, so many of the Sailor Moon and other Nelvana casts still live in the GTA. You know, talked about, you know, unfortunately, the different, you know, passings, Kirby Morrow, several of the Sailor Moon voice actors. But, you know, fondly remembering them as well, which was nice. You know, the acquisition of Teletoon, like it pretty much went through the entire like chorus related anime history, which, you know, was sort of a fascinating like modern history lesson.
yeah. So
Basically, there was a lot of good content up until maybe 2008, and then there's not a lot of new content from 2009 to now.
Essentially, and one of the questions, you know, was like, are you going to bring Bionics back as like a streaming service, or you know, did he think they should? And it's kind of unclear, right? Like, it's not like really something, you know, he could answer.
He worked at YTV.
Chorus, yeah.
yeah,
Is it the Anime Man or whatever, the Anime Zone, or
No,
So
the guy that was
he revealed that he
okay.
was the anime master at the
Yeah,
panel.
that's what I was thinking. Yes, I remember that dude.
Which was, I think, a secret at the time, but he did also mention that he did appear, I think, on Vortex, one of the YTV programming blocks. So I think it's not the hugest or biggest secret, but...
If I'm not mistaken, Jesse did do an interview with him, right? On
More
his
than
own
likely.
podcast? I feel like he did.
yes, and this would have been something that Jesse would have easily sunk his teeth into, because this is all part of his own MO.
Because Jesse has been in contact with him, if I'm not mistaken. Jesse, you can correct me if that's not the case.
Assuming he listens these days. Okay. See, okay, just on your last question about the whole streaming services bit, it's worth mentioning, or in the mid-aughts, I believe it was in the mid-aughts, I forgot the exact year, the owner of YTV at the time, which was Shaw, I think, not Chorus, or maybe it was Chorus actually. They did receive a license to run a linear anime channel.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah, but they never acted on it. And I applied around the same time. I applied for a part-time job with them for their forms. and they, like, I told them about my intention. Maybe this was, looking back, this might have not been the biggest thing to do. But I told them about that I was aware of this application. They seemed surprised that anybody would know about it, but they also seemed like they knew about it themselves. So they told me, and I guess this is corporate speak, that I left a good impression, but they decided to go internally or either they went internally or they decided not to fill the position and have present staff fill it. But I left with pretty good feelings regardless, because I just thought it was just a fun conversation, and I'd like to think they enjoyed it too. But yeah, I think we're talking almost around the time Anime Roundtable started.
Yeah.
So we could be talking in 2004, somewhere between 2004 to 2006.
Those were the golden years of anime in Canada.
And around that time, Anime Network, which was just a VOD service.
Yeah, from ADV.
Yeah, from ADV. That briefly did show up as well on most systems in Canada. So...
My favorite question that he got was someone asked, why did they show the Gundam Wing movie, Endless Waltz, before they showed the actual series?
Oh, yeah.
And his answer was, it was before he was hired.
Maybe you can ask why Animigo opted to take out the Kimigori Orange Road OAV series and the movie I Want to Return to That Day before taking out the TV series.
Oh, you know what? That reminds me, not Kimagure, but I just remember the commercial for Gundam Wing Endless Waltz, and they had a line where they said, "Endless Waltz has endless waltz," and they just did this quick clip of like people dancing in a ballroom.
Well, it sounds like a YTV commercial, to be
Endless
quite honest
Waltz
with
has
you.
endless waltz. And it does not have endless waltzes.
I mean, I'll always remember all of the different times that they had to rhyme Dragon Ball Z with 5:30 or 4:30,
yeah.
depending on when they, like, what time slot they put it in. There's lots of great memories with YTV, and like one of the coolest things, apparently, the second time they featured Anime North on the Zone. I think attendance spiked. I mean, according to his panel, 60% like the next year. So like, you know, whatever factors went into that increase, you know, I'm not sure you could make a direct correlation. But like, I think that there, you know, the impact like one TV channel had like on, you know, the country as far as the fandom is like huge. And it's different from like what the States had, I think. Like with something like Toonami, Adult Swim, like it seems so much more broad, like it, you know, it just affected like a more like spread out cultural zeitgeist, where, you know, everyone kind of knows Toonami, they know that robot guy, like, you know, there's a shared knowledge. But like I feel with Canada and especially Toronto, there's like this interesting shared passion that we have. You know, a Sailor Moon convention that ran out of the Science Center. You know, we had like when there were some writers and voice actors that came a few years ago, and they're commenting about things like, yeah, for some reason Canada really loved Zatch Bell more than the U.S. did.
Yeah.
And there's so many.
That's a common line.
Yeah, there's so many interesting
Canada liked
situations.
so-and-so.
Yeah.
They liked Witch Hunter Robin a lot more too.
Yeah.
We did, I shouldn't say.
Because we had less options, maybe.
We did not have a lot of options, no. And yes, it's weird how certain things just hit off a lot better here than our neighbors. So like Witch Hunter Robin, Gundam Seed.
Yeah, Gundam Seed's huge.
And look how Canada is looked at as a market.
like shit.
It's less, I think, celebrated, but I'm pretty positive Inuyasha is more popular here. Like, it might be less extreme compared to something like Sailor Moon, but I think especially like of a certain generation, like Canadians have. Like I think for so many people, like Change the World is probably the first Japanese opening so many people heard, and it's kind of surreal because like we had like the modified version of the Sailor Moon opening, but for so many anime fans we have the two weird Dragon Ball Z openings, both Canadian and American, and both are strange, but you know, as far as like Japanese like openings are pretty rare, and to have it in Japanese even though the show is in English dubbed, I think like caught people off guard. I mean, it happened with Gundam Wing as well.
Just Communication is a classic.
Yeah. But with those series, it sort of opened people up to like, oh, Japan has this entire, like, I think I've rambled about how much I like openings before, but like, you know, the art form.
Well, we're in agreement here.
Yeah.
So we're in agreement. So I wish we can go a little bit more on this. But as I said, it's like this tells you a little bit about how the little nuances about Canadian anime fandom compared to American anime fandom. And boy, maybe we become so protective because we have to go to maybe a little bit more greater lengths to be able to see things. So that whole what we get, not being picky.
I almost never went out on Friday nights because of Bionics back in high school.
That was a common sentiment in the panel. People's like, he asked, like, how many of you planned your Friday nights around Bionics? And like a good number of people rose their hand.
Yeah, there you go. Good times though. I mean, I never hung out to watch it because I was always watching on DVDs or other means or just whatever. But
Other means.
Well, we're talking aughts, right?
Yep.
But there's a certain respect I have for that, for back then, right? Even though I never watched it nearly as much.
And now it's all gone.
Well, that's the sad part, isn't it?
Because
Well,
there's
it's
no
sad in
reason.
some way,
There's
but-
no reason to see how it can't work here. Still,
Still? Yeah. Oh, you mean
But-
the block or...
like any block.
Yeah.
Give me something, man.
I
like,
haven't had cable in so many years
Well,
at this
for me,
point.
it's just... Yeah, because I think it's still the streaming thing, right?
Like, I have a lot of nostalgia for it. Like, I loved broadcast TV. Like, it was great, but, you know, it's not part of my life anymore, and I don't think a programming block would encourage me to make it part of my life. I'd be jealous of those who did. Like, I remember maybe not the last couple years, but there were times, maybe like 5 years ago when I'd come to Anime North, and having cable at the hotel room was a cool, like, you know, novelty. Like, it was like, oh, what's on YTV right now? It was nostalgic. It was fun. But yeah. But not for me personally purchasing.
I likely wouldn't watch it now, but man, it kind of sucked during university. Granted, I was out a lot more at that point because Anime Club was usually on Friday nights for me, but it left a big hole that has not been filled.
Well, the thing was, I think it sounds like it was Friday nights. YTV was an anime club for a lot of high schoolers. So, well, as I said, this is just kind of a cross section of the stuff that caught our attention. This is Anime North. Anime North has a lot of things. If you want a lesson on something, you want to learn something new, you want a history lesson, you'll find it. Just leaf through the survival guide just enough. And we're not even scratching the surface. There was a lot. I know there's a lot going on here. I barely saw anything of it.
I learned what anime's strongest tree is.
What's that?
I don't want to give that away. They might redo the panel. It was an amazing panel. I will say that like the number one was maybe not a surprise if you know anything about trees in anime and fiction in general. The strongest tree is you can figure it out. The second strongest tree was a complete surprise though. Kamui Woods, unfortunately, from My Hero Academia, he did not do so well. Only 25 life points.
That's one way to put it.
The winner was like 1,700.
I'll have to look up the reference later. Okay, for myself, if I'm to pull out one thing, I did have a panel earlier this morning, which, unfortunately, with all the other things that had happened throughout the convention, it wasn't well attended, to be quite honest with you, which was okay with me, because then people wouldn't have to see me fall flat on my face trying to do a panel.
Now, Mike.
Well, now you're making me worry, Amy, because saying you're a media arts teacher, that was the first time I had ever used PowerPoint for a present for anything. So I'd like to think you'd grade me just a little lightly on this one, just for the first attempt.
From what little I saw, you avoided some common mistakes, so I was very proud of you for that.
Thank you. At least it sounds like it's at least a passing grade. I won't go. I think, and the timing might have been bad because of all that was going on outside with people trying to get in for the day. And we know we'll talk. That's going to be the talk coming out, like in the weeks in the postmortem. But I was okay with how it went. I appreciate the people who decide to come in and listen to the story. I think really thought well of it. So I won't say any more about it because I'm gonna actually talk just a little bit more about it towards the end. But looking back, maybe my mistake was keeping away so many details before, so I didn't really hype it up. I wish we could talk about other stuff, but in the end, the Anime Roundtable is always about the news, and we've missed a number of headlines, and maybe at a point we'll come back to those. But a few did stick out for us that I think would work out for this episode. So let's delve into a couple headlines, and then we'll lighten things up just a little bit towards the end. So almost early in the week, we learned a little bit more about the cause of death of the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! According to autopsy reports, Kazuki Takahashi drowned after boaters spotted his body off the coast of Okinawa while he was vacationing. His body was discovered on July 6, but autopsy had determined he had actually died 2 days earlier in some sort of snorkeling accident, since his body was found with such gear. In the roughly 10 days since, there have been an outpouring of condolences from fans, with some noteworthy ones coming from Western voice actors who played many of his Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters and had met up with him on his visits to the States. Many of his Japanese peers would talk about his love for tabletop games, from Mahjong to RPGs, but what was consistent in all of the tributes was that it sounded like Takahashi was a fan first and foremost and never seemed too big of himself. So, what part of his legacy do we want to start with? His professional one with Yu-Gi-Oh! Specifically, or just him and the impacts he had on individuals in the industry? I hate making this comparison, but one of the tributes did come from George Morikawa, the creator of Hajime no Ippo. We know last year he was very close to Kentaro Miura and talked at length about him when he passed away. And ironically, we talked about him at Anime North as well last year. So it's maybe a bit of a downer that we talk about the death of another mangaka. But there's an interesting legacy. I mean, as I said, might be an apples and oranges argument to compare Berserk to Yu-Gi-Oh! But there's a legacy that's different but cool in its own way, right? I mean, I think about Yu-Gi-Oh! Being the follow-up, 4Kids' follow-up to having the Pokemon series.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And maybe in many respects, we can debate if it surpassed it. I think it certainly maintained, and maybe probably popularized trading card, those type of trading card games. Probably solidified the popularity outside of Japan.
Yeah, the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG's popularity has endured through all these years.
It's intuitive. It's the only one I've ever learned how to play a little bit, even. Like, it's less complicated than Pokemon.
Yeah. So, we have that. I really don't know what to say about all of this at the moment. I mean, I was never into Yu-Gi-Oh! I watched the first couple episodes of the anime series. So some of his words were from some of the voice actors from that series, and they talked about him posing with him and just being a fan.
The Western voice actor tribute that stood out to me was Eric Stewart, where he, and who knows the validity of this, but he mentioned that in talking with Takahashi that Stewart's version of Kaiba was his favorite, which, regardless of, I guess, if he was telling the truth, like how amazing must that have felt, like as an actor, to say, okay, your version is my favorite. Like he might have said that to every voice actor from every country he visited, but like I think that it speaks to, you don't necessarily hear about mangakas and these author artists and having like those kind of intimate and friendly moments. And I think that through all the stories, it seems like Kazuki Takahashi was a very genuine person and artist. If you think about the legacy of Yu-Gi-Oh, people probably think, oh, it's a mass marketing, cash cow thing. Like, what's the artistic integrity here? But if you look at those early chapters, like before the trading card game stuff dominated, there's some really, it's dark, but it's like it's essentially a kid's horror manga. But it's the creativity is so strong there. And I'm really thankful he was able to kind of take the story back at the end and kind of downplay the mass marketing type of things. And I think that, like, maybe ironically, it's because of how successful the marketing parts were that he was able to leverage that. But even just as an artist, how many like card illustrations this man did?
Yeah, he did.
It's astounding because I think he was the illustrator for almost all of them, if not all of them. Like I remember when I was playing and collecting the cards, at the bottom every single one, at least for those first few sets, said Kazuki Takahashi, versus with the Pokemon trading card game, a different approach, and I think both are valid and creatively interesting. But like, with Pokemon, almost every card was a different artist. So the authorship stuff, but yeah, like it really seems like he was a great guy, and I think that, all of these, like all death is tragic, of course, but the impact Yu-Gi-Oh had on fans and actors for so many reasons, I think, was profound. Like it was trending for quite a few days.
Yeah. On that topic, since you mentioned, I forgot the voice actor's name again.
Eric Stewart.
Stewart mentioning Takahashi enjoyed his work in that role as Kaiba. Megumi Ogata, one of the other tributes that stuck out to me. Like Ogata mentioned that they were the first choice of Takahashi to play Yugi.
Oh, cool!
Right. That's what Ogata mentioned in their tribute. So I thought, it just makes me think of other voice actors, and then hearing the reactions of other people, probably closer to the creators. Lisa Ortiz, I've always told this story about Lisa Ortiz and how her interpretation of Lena Inverse was received by Japanese producers, and people thought, and the Slayer's producers back in Japan thought her impression of Lena Inverse was very well done too. So who knows if he was just saying that, but yeah, it means something to say I enjoyed how you interpreted my character. Right. Well, it was also noted, what else? You kind of hit an interesting point to me, where we started to talk about him as a person. Sounded like just a fan, just a fun character to hang around. In the year after Mira passed away, we talked. There was a lot of talk about him, about his earnestness, right? In the case of Izumi Matsumoto, we learned a little bit about his failing health in his later days. even Togashi these days, we learn about his health issues. I mean, there's a degree of, fallibility may not be the word I'm looking for, but just the idea we can identify with some of the things they go through as people, or some of the things they act, just the fact that you can identify with something they're going through, or the way they are, or their personalities. And I think that might be, that it just sounds like that could be the positive spin on when you think of Takahashi as a person. He was just, made you feel comfortable. You can probably very, very relatable. Well, one other thing to also have mentioned that was put in the reports was that he was also politically active.
Yeah. I remember, at least there was a lot of buzz on Twitter that he was very anti-war, which kind of went against the prime minister at the time, and there's an widely circulated after his passing artwork of Yu-Gi-Oh characters and basically going go vote. Which is, I hope, was a successful version of Pokemon Go to the polls, but actually coming from the source this time. But there was clearly a passion there, and I think a lot of well, I don't want to say a lot, some artists being passionate about peace and connection and sort of international bonding and cooperation. I'm definitely dancing around an elephant in the room about another death that happened recently, and I don't know how much you want to go into that. So
okay, let's
that's
go.
why
Well,
I'm dancing around it.
Let's start. Let's do an endless waltz here. So
are we really?
No. The endless waltz is maybe dancing around it. Yes. I guess we do have to at least acknowledge Shinzo Abe's assassination last week. Yeah, I'm going to put that on the back burner, to be quite honest.
Please do.
Because you know what? You know who does who I'm trying to get to talk about it, and maybe he might?
Neil?
We talked over the last week. I spoke with him this afternoon, and we're going to try and get him to come on, to be up behind the mics again. And on top of that, I also found out that our old friend Mohammed Abdul Hadi, old Mo A, is set to visit his mother and sister here in Canada sometime in the next couple weeks. And if you remember back in 2018, after we did Anime North there, after our return episode, I did an episode with just Neil and Mo. And we're going to try and do it again. And yeah, he had a lot to say about Shinzo Abe. So I think he's probably the best person. Amongst this circle, amongst the people who have sat around at the table over the past 16 years, he might be the most interesting person to talk to on this subject. And I hope you guys will take a listen to it when he does. But on the topic of Japanese politics, and here's what you hope the go to vote is, where you hoped it worked. Abe was killed 2 days before the upper house elections, the House of, I believe it's called the House of Councillors. And as expected, Abe's ruling Liberal Democratic Party won a convincing majority of the seats up for election, and in the process, manga creator Ken Akamatsu.
Oh, yes.
Negima. Love Hina.
Right.
Well, those are the two I know. But
It's Date My Santa.
Oh, forgot. And those are two I want to mention.
What was the Negima sequel?
UQ Holder. Yes.
Yeah. That he pretended wasn't the sequel, and then all these Negima characters kept showing up.
Yeah. It was later on, much later in the serialization, where he slightly updated the title to say Magister Negimagi 2.
He has a history of like pretending things are one thing. It wasn't that like the story behind Negima that he wanted to do like a battle shonen action series, and the editors were like, "Please do another harem," and he was like, "Okay," and then like I think like every 2 chapters it gets slightly more battle-y or something, or every 2 like volumes.
It was the Kyoto arc, I believe, is when it started having more of those action scenes in them, and then the school festival arc is when it made that transition complete. Not to say that he still doesn't throw in the panty shots and the other fan service moments, but at that point, Nejima was doing too well that the editors just couldn't let him stop doing that.
Oh, there you go. Just for reference, a thought on just the way they do the upper house elections. The upper house, the House of Councilors, I believe, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 228 seats. People elected are done are elected on a 6-year term. Every 3 years, half of the seats go up for re-election. So the chamber is never dissolved; it's continuously running in that sense. And maybe what might be of most interest is of the half seats. So let's say if it's 225 or 250, I think, give or take. There's roughly 50. So in any given upper house election, there's 125. Of those roughly 125, give or take, roughly 50 of them are set aside in a proportional representation type system. So there's elections based on districts, but then I think they take the popular vote in some form and then give out the remaining 50 seats based on that popular vote. And that's how Akamatsu became a member of the Diet. He was high enough on that pecking order that he was able to gain a seat through the proportional representation portion of the election.
Has he expressed that he wanted to be a politician before?
Well, we did mention this in December because this is actually a follow-up to a story that we brought up back in December. I don't know if you were on at the time. I'm pretty sure Kevin was. Pretty sure James was. Pretty sure Mo was, but I don't think he said too much. But he announced his intention to run for the House of Councilors. So this is a follow-up. He had made it known. He's been active. We've known this for some years, right? He's been a longtime advocate for freedom of expression. Let's call it the positive spin on the term, because I know recent years has kind of added another connotation.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, he's been a big advocate for that. He has come out against various proposed expansions of both censorship and copyright laws over the last decade. So the taking out of concepts of lolicon, I think was one thing. I mean, I'm trying to look up some of the interesting stuff that was brought up. That he freedom of expression. I'm just looking over this, and I should have written it down in my own notes. Supported by many. I lost my place here. Well, but what those specifically entailed, because they were topical and they were based on him going up against bills that proposed those changes. And at a point, he was asked by the LDP as an advisor of some sort.
Okay.
So this is how how he kind of got there. And I thought it was a kind of an interesting part. And as I said, I sort of lost my notes there, I'm afraid. So, the specifics of the things he actually did get involved with. If I find it, or if one of our listeners, maybe our sole listener, thank you so much for coming by, is able to find that, we'll look it up.
Well, there's more than one person here.
Well, yeah, but they're all friends. Not to say you're not either.
I'm not a friend, I'm an associate.
Well, that's Norm. You wanna? It'll be fun. Maybe we should have you do the next segment with us too.
Yeah, get the China shop ready.
Oh well, yeah. That's without saying. So, but we mentioned that earlier. So, those of course are pretty noteworthy kind of has me thinking about the rebellious nature of the industry, right? The rebellious nature of the industry and subject matter. So maybe another topic for another time when the other two are around the table, figuratively. In a more recent development, this week actually, as he accepted his election, he's also looking to strengthen legal game preservation when it comes to retro games.
Oh,
so
wow.
this might be another thing to keep up with in the very near future. So, as I said, we're probably going to follow up this follow-up, and it might be worth mentioning in the next couple of weeks. And perhaps away from these topics, he also wants to remain an advocate for those who suffer from, sadness, pain, isolation, loneliness, those type of things, which seems to be his most personal one, since on the topic of people who like to put their own personal lives out there, mangaka specifically. Remember, he put himself out there around the time he got married too. He kind of made that known and talked about his feelings on marriage. So congratulations to him. Let's see what it'll be interesting to see what happens. An interesting person to now have on board, considering the recognition of soft power and the want to roll that a little bit more into actual government policy in some form, whether it's promotion or marketing or whatever, helping tourism. Plenty of options, and plenty of ways to find out about that here at Anime North, where you can learn just about anything. But as I said, a story worth keeping up with. Okay, how far are we into the recording? Oh, a little over an hour in. We're actually making okay time. Want to lighten it up. I see Norm's in the room. Do you want to sit down for a couple minutes, Norm?
Yeah, I will.
Don't worry, I'm not gonna. Aside from one little mention, I'm not out to put you guys.
I can't talk about now from last time.
Well, come on, have a seat. It's been a while. Let's see if the microphone, unfortunately, microphone 4, we found out has an issue right now. Hey, Amy, do you remember which side is actually known to be the front side? For all I know, I may have put the wrong side facing.
Let's find out.
We'll find out the hard way in a couple minutes.
Can you hear me now through this?
We'll try.
If ours are working, it should be the right side. I see numbers here.
Yeah, and you see, and there's a little the little design you see on
Upside down heart.
Yeah, the upside down heart, and presumably, I think the upside down heart should be on Norm's side. How's it going, Norm?
Which part you last week look at?
Hey, Amy, you want to check?
Yep.
Nope, no water.
We're good.
It belongs to the hotel.
Okay, we'll try, and I'd say I'd ask Norm to just speak up a little bit, or maybe we can share the microphone for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't mind, Amy?
Go ahead.
All right. So, Norm, good to see you, as always, for
Yes,
your
yes.
obligatory walk on the show.
You want me to sit there? Or is he going somewhere else?
Just gonna try and get more water, I believe.
Okay,
But-
so you use this then?
You can use that one. You can sit on 3
works?
for a couple minutes. Oh no, it's registering.
Okay.
It's registering.
Then. Well,
But I don't know if it's because of the microphone or the other 3 microphones are picking him up. But, well, give me a sec here. I can tell here. Whatever. You can have a
Whatever.
seat around the mic 3 for the third mic for a couple minutes if it's okay.
sure, I'll keep my mic. Get the.
So, yeah, nothing like live.
They
well,
actually
not
let me
live.
walk in banks like this.
Way to go.
I know. It's like-
Okay, so from your standpoint, how's day 2? I mean, we've heard. How are you guys holding up?
Well, where I'm working, we're getting back into swing. It's, I've had to get promote some new crew because we've lost some people.
Yeah, we
remember-
mentioned it we talked about it last night too.
Yeah, I'll
So
say
I'm
his
sorry.
name. A fellow named Tom Smith was my tag team partner in Infamy here at Anime North. He's a technical wizard. Just a great guy, and I really miss him. And we're missing, but getting the other guys to step up, well, they're getting into it. Video wherever we're supposed to be, we con wise, well, there's some things aren't working, some things are, but it's like, boy, people want to come back.
I think that's a big takeaway I got.
Oh no, it's the whole
That's
world.
the big takeaway I got.
The whole world's been on hold for 2020. And now people, they just want to get back out there. They want to enjoy themselves. They want to do something. They want to see people they haven't seen for almost 3 years. They want to have a good time.
Well, I think that's part of it, yeah.
Well, things I can comment. Last time you asked me about Vic Mignogna, I said no comment.
I wasn't going to ask. Trust me, I wasn't going to ask.
I'm going to. I can say something about it now. I'm surprised. With the lawyer he had in Texas, I'm surprised he isn't on death row now. Okay. Boy, something. Buddy, you should have kept your mouth shut. And not gone to court.
I try not to keep up, to be honest.
Well, that's why some people call him Vic Mangina for a reason.
Well, no, but for me, it's like, buddy, there's times to keep your mouth shut and let people think you're fooled and then open it and remove all doubt. And that's all. You asked me to comment on it last time, but I said, no, we can't.
Did I?
Oh, yeah.
Like all those years ago?
No, it would have been like, I'm trying to remember.
2019.
Okay.
And I said, we can't comment on it.
Well, I would have
I'll
asked
just say no
before
comment.
we continued the recording.
But that's another thing, a big thing. The Me Too movement over the last, it just took off. Well, everybody got affected, including anime. But otherwise, Anime North, it's like
The happy
the boss. Okay, the boss here at the hotel, not Bill Powers, who looks like Kenny Rogers now. He's rocking with the COVID beard, so it looks good on you. His boss talking to me, he said when they took the mandates off or lowered them, he said it's like they threw a power switch on and the whole airport strip took off. It's like power came surging back.
Wow.
So yeah, and you can see here.
It's been quite the weekend. The
Yes.
positives. Like I do want to be positive about some of the things that.
Very positive.
But I mean, could we be talking a record here? Record attendance, because that seems to be some of the buzz I'm beginning to read.
All I would say is we're close to where we left off. I see this as I tell people it's a reboot year. They ask me how many are you thinking going? How many do you expect? There's expecting and hoping. You hope you get enough to pay the bills. Well,
Bills are paid.
Figure it out for yourselves.
Bills will sound like they'll be paid okay.
Yeah.
So that's good to hear.
That's
Despite
the
all
news.
the things that happen. You did use the phrase "back in the saddle" again. If you're trying to get back in the saddle, you're going to have a couple. What is it? Saddle.
You get back in the saddle, you're going to get some saddle sores, and
I think
you got to
that's
learn
what
to deal
happened.
with them. Yeah.
That's what. That's
And
sort
I'll
of what
say-
happened. And
So we had you get some hiccups, you get some bumps, you're rusty. It's like, strapping on the skates and going out there and playing hockey again, and there's some rust.
that's where we are.
Yeah. Or there's some things you forgot and you're learning again.
Well, okay, that one I can relate to since I returned to my regular job too.
Yeah. I don't have that worry anymore. I finally told the Steel Company of Canada, take this job and shove it. I'm on pension
Take your
now.
time off.
I'm on pension.
Nice.
Yeah, so which is another sobering thought. Yeah, how we're all getting older, not necessarily smarter, but more wiser. But we're getting older. But hey, we're having fun with it. And anybody says, people out there, my parents says I'm getting too old for it. Yeah, tell them they're wrong. Take my word for it.
Well, so anything to look forward to on the final day? Like I know you do your things have some other things going on the very last day, but just something that you're thinking just as we go into the final day of the 25th anniversary. And you've been here day one, and
yeah.
you're very easily
yeah.
the difference between me and you is I've been on and off over the years.
Yeah.
You're continuous.
I was one of the first people got on board. It actually started in '95 at a convention called Primedia, where we ran into Donald. Me and Eileen, who's the head of programming, and basically he got us on board. He said, "I want to start an anime convention," and that's basically when it started. So yeah.
Yeah, I think now I know a little bit more because I didn't really know that part of the story.
We all fixed it. All started with the Dave Merrill did a talk on Toronto fandom, and yeah, you can trace back the roots of Anime North in some of these, like in good old Toronto Trek became Polaris. I miss old Toronto Trek, Ad Astra, and others. Well, basically, it was with how anime conventions start. It's like, hey kids, let's put on a con. And then you find, there's a movie where that's a line. Mickey Rooney telling Judy Garland, let's put on a show. Well, then you find out there's a little more to it than that. And it's starting the convention. It's a big learning curve. It's a big learning. You're moving up and up. For us, well, then you get to a point where, like we did when we left off, hey, you know, nothing stopped. We're unstoppable. And then something, well, look what happened. We found out. And all the other conventions, they're in the same book. But, you know, they're coming, you know, they're making a comeback. Sean Mark with Otaku Baloo, he's also the Crunchyroll rep. He's telling us, you know who I'm talking about? Okay, but he's the Crunchyroll rep in Canada, saying that all the Canadian, they're all up, they're doing good. And so everybody's looking to come back. That's what I'm saying. That's the positive thing. You're looking to come back. And yeah, there's going to be some, you know, bumps along the way, but you learn to work around them again, or you learn to work around, you innovate, you experiment, and somehow you make it work. For what's going on tomorrow?
I'm going to lighten it up right after. Right.
Yeah, look
really
at
like.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we can just leave that for now because people.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
you know, it's. Let's use the old Ontario license plate phrase. Yours to discover. That's tomorrow.
Well, that was our last. Remember our last motto?
Oh yeah, open for business.
No, no, it was.
Keep it
Just
beautiful.
Doug Ford was. I'm going to drop that motto. And say, hey, well, I guess we'll use it. No, it was our staff shirt was a license plate number, and then it was Anime North. Yours to discover. So.
Oh, I remember that.
The old one, the other one before that was keep it beautiful too.
Oh yeah. Well,
Okay, well maybe we'll leave it for now. Last year, when we did the online edition of Anime North, when we did the stay-at-home edition, we introduced a new segment called Yes or No.
Oh.
So, I invited Norm on because let's play a little game of yes or no. It's not, there's no right or wrong answer. You just state an answer. Give me a logical reason why that could be the case, either or, yes or no. And it might be worth a topic.
Well,
so this is in replace of our rapid fire
I
bullets.
put my foot in it, but okay.
Okay.
What the heck?
Oh, well, let's have a little fun.
Okay.
I think this might be a little bit of
Yeah.
fun. Okay. So here we go. I think I have 6 of them this year, or for this time around. And James and I talked about this, by the way, earlier today. So, yes or no? With vinyl being a thing again, can we see a movie or even an anime being sold on a vintage format? If so, what? VHS or Laserdisc? And we're sitting inside the Halton room. I know, I see the television behind us. I look ahead on the schedule. On the topic of what's coming up for day 3, this is going to be a video room that'll play nothing but Laserdiscs tomorrow, from what you told me.
What?
That's the purpose of the TV
it's a
behind you.
memorial edition. The Tom Smith Memorial Laserdisc edition, because Tom Smith was an avid collector. And I mean, we had something like 24 boxes of his material, like VHS, DVDs, Blu-rays. I got 2 boxes worth of these special DVD collectors the collections comes with the book, and they are just so nice, and lots of laser discs. And yeah, I would think it would be laser disc that you can make it look nice. You get a nice package with it, and just that whole thing that you can't do with the VHS is like a little box. The laser disc comes like the old LP, and that was a big collector's thing back in. I still have my LPs, so
Could be that.
that was a big thing.
Kevin, Amy, what's your thought?
Well, anime is already coming out in vinyl, and soundtracks are coming out in vinyl. But I don't know if people under the age of 40 would bite on that.
Fair point. Amy?
I think that considering there are re-releases of like NES games on the traditional cartridges, I do think there would be a market, but I'm not sure what series.
It probably
or
would have to be
movie it would
series
be.
specific.
Yeah, because I was thinking like to capitalize on that, something like the Ruby Spears Mega Man cartoon. But I don't know who owns the rights to that. I don't know how well that might sell. But I think it needs to be something that like has a legacy of being on a VHS or a Laserdisc that like people really remember it for being on those formats. I don't think you could release anything, but I definitely think it's possible.
Well, you'd probably work out for Discotech.
It'd have to be something from the 80s.
Yeah, it would have to
Yeah.
be.
Like
But there-
Shinesman
Yeah.
or Orgus.
Yeah, just a thought. But it's, I
Or,
thought.
or Speed Racer, because that's what people remember back in the day. You can make Speed Racer or Astro Boy.
Astro Boy.
Yeah.
They're-
Well, there's
they're
your thought,
talented.
and putting aside the whole having the machinery to play it, but just a thought.
You wouldn't be playing this. You'd be putting it up on the shelf to look and say, "Hey, look!" And it's like, "Wow,
That
it's
could-
not the play,
Yeah,
it's the look."
basically.
Yeah, that could be,
Basically.
and that could be part of the MO.
Yeah.
Either or. Which statement is more true? Dragon Ball Evolution made life easy for any Western-based live-action adaptation of an anime or manga property, or the Cowboy Bebop live-action made it life more difficult for it.
Ugh.
The first one.
You think the first one?
The first one.
I
Well,
think-
hey, they're trying to do another Death Note series.
Okay.
So if Cowboy Bebop really killed that kind of enthusiasm for new projects, then
No, there's still One Piece to come, you know.
yeah, and then now there's like a Yu Yu Hakusho live action adaptation that's in the works. So I think I'd say the first one. Even though I didn't even go watch that movie, even when I had free tickets.
Oh boy. You know what made me think of this one though? Earlier today, Netflix started releasing cast notes for a live-action Yu Yu Hakusho. That'll be just in Japanese, and well, I noticed a lot of people seemed happy with this, or at least there's a lot more thumbs up on Facebook. So that's why I had to preface it by saying Western adaptation. Because I think by and large a Japanese live action adaptation has fared a lot better. We can talk about the merits about that and why in the future.
It depends. The more, in my opinion, the more fantastical the series is, the harder it is to adapt into a live action series because they don't usually have nearly the amount of budget that a Western adaptation could get.
I think maybe the lack of budget can lead to a degree of creativity that just ends up working.
Well, you know, I mean, that's the infamous Doctor Who, the BBC prop department. I mean, they were infamous for getting something out of nothing.
Well, that's that's sort of what I was thinking.
And that's where the decision was put. But for live action, outside of Marvel or DC properties, what do North American audiences really know? It's a niche thing. You see a Japanese live action adaptation of one of their popular mangas or series. You see the actors; they know this is complete, not, you know, and they go with it. They don't take it too seriously and they have fun with it. Whereas Americans, they look and go, they don't get it. Mm-hmm. But like you said, you know, with Marvel especially, Marvel Cinema, it's made so much money. And I think.
But then again, we're
that's what
talking
people
American
expect.
on American, right?
Oh yeah, but that's what Americans.
Oh, but then again, that's probably the approach that an American
Yes.
viewer or a North American viewer.
Yeah, American
would
North, they'll
want.
look at it and go,
Because
don't get it.
and then
Yeah.
maybe that's not necessarily a fair comparison.
No.
It's not fair to the Japanese property.
no, but you try to tell the average American is, and unless they're really into it, they don't get it. But hey,
Yeah. Okay. I made this one up just in the last couple minutes as we were chatting. So not even James knows about this one. Yes or no? Rumiko Takahashi is anime and manga's version of the Rolling Stones. What I mean by that is that father and son, or like an elder, somebody in their middle age and a kid, will find a title from Rumiko Takahashi that will be the benchmark in their anime fandom. For us, I make this argument for people who kept up in the early 80s, or maybe even the 70s, it would be Urusei Yatsura. For maybe of my cloth, of my fabric, my generation, either Maison Ikoku or Ranma. But anybody more further ahead, Inuyasha without a doubt. So that's why I'm saying yes or no. Rumiko Takahashi is anime and manga's version of the Rolling Stones.
I think so.
Oh yeah, the lady.
I just lay out the case?
No, that the ladies. I mean, she's fueled the whole industry about her own, and she's one of the most recognizable names. And her properties, they just resonate.
See, I can think on the fly.
Well, those new series aren't as good, but I digress.
Well, it's interesting because Lum is about to be reintroduced to a whole new generation with that animated series about to come out.
I shouldn't say not as good, just not as popular.
Yeah.
Well,
Amy?
Oh,
You probably
the
agree.
next
I probably laid out the case. So
I think you laid out the case, and I know so little about popular
Okay.
music that I'll just agree with you. Sure, sounds right.
Okay, let's get more Toronto specific, and then maybe come back to Anime North at the end. Just to keep it light towards the end. I have another, but let's save that for another day. Either or. What's done more for the city of Toronto? The Pixar movie Turning Red or the graphic novels of Scott Pilgrim? Oh, by the way, if the audience has a thought, I'd love to hear their thought.
I mean, Turning Red is too new, I think. Like, there's a shot.
Okay, Turning Red says being too new.
It's too new.
Okay.
I also I haven't seen Turning Red yet,
Same.
but Scott Pilgrim was interesting that it featured so many obscure places, obscure even for people who live. I mean, I grew up in the suburbs. I'd never heard of Sneaky D's or the Reference Library before Scott Pilgrim, and now I've been to Sneaky D's once, but I've been to the Reference Library dozens of times for TCAF, and I think that I've had visitors either from out of province or even out of country and said, oh yeah, the Reference Library, that's from Scott Pilgrim, if you want to check that out. So I mean, as the audience said, I think Scott Pilgrim has been around for long enough, but it's also slightly less in your face about being from Toronto. That was a big part of Turning Red's marketing. If you put any amount of effort into your fictional absorption, definitely Scott Pilgrim. If you only watch trailers, then Turning Red.
Norm?
well, I'm from Hamilton, so
Hammertown.
I'll tell you what though. I think Murdoch's Mysteries beats them both out.
Oh, hey, I like that one, especially if you're into history. If you want my thought, I think it depends on the type of fan you are. I mean, if you ask that question to anybody here at Anime North, it's 90%, probably above Scott Pilgrim. Go outside, and to those who are in the mainstream, it's Turning Red because maybe they don't know about Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the fan. But we're at Anime North, so the correct answer is okay.
Apparently, there might be. I think there's supposed to be an Anime North reference in Turning Red.
Really?
Somewhere it's somewhere. Somebody said, yeah, it's a date circled in a calendar. And,
Oh, cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So
I
the
can
last
believe
weekend.
that.
Okay.
As I remember, when the Deers had said, yeah, that's okay.
Okay, that's fun. That would actually be pretty
Yeah,
cool.
look
I
at-
would say be flattered.
And I've only seen clips, but I think the main character at one point is doodling in a very Bishonen style. So I get the impression that it's not that big a leap.
Okay.
She might have actually been in Artist Alley one year.
Okay, so let's move on. Yes or no? And we'll put aside all the logistics, all the legal stuff behind this, just the concept and maybe how it would look on the weekend of. A scramble crossing here at City View and Dixon during the Anime North weekend. You know what I mean by scramble crossing? I see a face bomb by Norm already. This one could go either. This is.
I don't think the police are going to like this one. Yeah, finish it.
Oh no, I just want to see just to put out the idea. We put out I put out this thought when we on our very first return episode in 2018, and I thought, what would people think of that? And yes, logistically, perhaps it'll never be, but just as an optic.
There would sooner be another man-made bridge over that little ditch near the bridge than doing a scramble crossing.
Wow.
Yeah, let's build a bridge over Dixon and do that instead.
We've had that brought up to us to go and take that up with the city of Toronto, please. Or dig a tunnel, we got a gopher that lives over there, see if he can do something for us.
You know what? I guess it only sounds cool in my own mind.
Oh, yeah. Well,
It'd be convenient.
Well, the thing was Dixon there, what we really tried to dissuade people doing, please don't play Frogger going across the two buildings. Please don't.
If we build a scramble crossing, we need to build a giant 109 building to make things completely accurate.
I'm sure we'll find somebody to make up a set or even cosplay it.
Just get Harvey's to get on board. Just build 12 more stories.
Yes, Anime North, the reason Harvey's discontinued Free Burger Day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And finally, and probably not, probably thank God too. Yes or no? Will we see church protesters tomorrow?
Yes.
I kind of actually, as long as it's the Canadian bunch, and those bunch, the American bunch, they can't come across the border anymore.
Oh, was that? Were those protesters
There
like a mix?
2018, there was two bunch. There's the Canadian bunch who, they're bad, but they don't cross. There's a line they don't cross. There's the American bunch. Well, let's just say they crossed the line.
See, the only line I was thinking about would be how many of them are American and can get across the border.
Well, I'll get to that. It wasn't that bad at the time. Hard to, this is 2018. And they were using some pretty nasty language, especially to the female cosplayers. And he's saying some really not bad stuff, and it's like, I won't repeat it because it's not worth repeating, but he's going on to his fit trail, suddenly he feels a tap on his shoulder, he turns around, it's a Toronto policeman who's telling him, one more word, you keep that up, you're going down to the station. And you're getting charged with a hate crime. And they shut up fast, and after that, guess what? They can't get back across the border. So their big mouths got them, that's it. You get tagged with hate crime, that ain't going to get you back across, that won't get you across borders, period. So, yeah, those guys get fixed.
Okay.
There was one today, but it's so much more subtle than the previous groups. It's just a little box with a sign on it, and the microphone was kind of on low. It was still being amplified, but it was such a different atmosphere than when Duckman used to combat them with his bucket drums.
God love Duckman.
I hope he's doing okay in Japan, but I hope he can come back, once things are more stable. But it was such an interesting contrast compared to what I remember. Mm-hmm. I miss Duckman. And I miss that event, but I definitely don't miss the actual, vitriolic people that Norm was mentioning. This, it's slightly frustrating, but it's easily ignored. Or some people are curious. They want to talk. They want to engage in dialogue, and it seemed like that was happening. So, not the best, but cool, whatever.
You had a thought? I don't know if I got your thought yet.
Well, I just think that they'll probably come.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. Maybe they didn't realize the date changed, but...
Or maybe because a lot of us are so old themselves and are, in that position. Yeah, they might not want to come on because they might be putting their health at risk. Because I'm pretty long in the tooth.
You know what my answer to this question would be, though? Just having heard all of this and said all of this, it just wouldn't now feel like Anime North if it didn't happen. It would be the we're back moment to me.
You know what? It's like back when we had the provincial Tory convention.
Oh, that, yes,
Oh,
of
yeah.
course.
But we had there was a bunch of kids out in front of the South Building. It was all at the North Building, at the South Building. I'm coming on a Friday. I'm coming back, and I'm looking. I said, "You guys do know they're at the other building." "Yeah, but you got more people." I said, "Fair enough," and walked on. You know.
Yeah, so there you go. You survived. Thanks for playing the game.
Yeah, the only thing I miss about the when things shut down in 2020, there would have been another conservative convention over in the North Building.
Aaron O'Toole.
But it would have been the same time as Pride Week.
Oh. Good times.
That would have been just.
That would have been.
I would've-
That might have been even more.
I would have come down for a day to stay at a hotel where we have our office and just watch across. Just watch the fun.
That's right.
Oh,
Good times. See, congratulations, you survived the game.
yeah.
How do you think? What did you think? Fun little game.
Look, after the last 3 years,
Well, better than I guess.
no.
Yeah, well, why not, right? Hope the audience
Well, we'll find out.
found the game a little bit of
Let's
fun.
see where we're.
Well, Norm, thanks.
Neil Nadelman's done.
Got to check, yeah.
That's there. I did want to mention a thing for tonight. I was doing a Kyoto animation tribute.
Oh, okay. On topic. Why not?
Yeah, because because you know what happened to them a couple of years back, and my God, it was just terrible. But so we showed some of their work. We showed Violet Evergarden. We showed Hibiki Euphonium movie, K-On! And that. And you look at something like that, the level of the art. It's just, my God, what a studio, and to have that happen to them, and now they're getting their feet back underneath them, but still, whoa. So, anime. It's the first time we weren't able to. So, that was a tribute to Kyoto Animation. So, I was glad we were able to do it. So, yeah.
Thanks, Norm.
Okay.
Always happy to have you on.
And on that note, got to get back to see what's going in the video rooms. So it's stuff's going to be turning. Unfortunately, no overnight track this year because
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm about to tell a little bit about that actually. Because
Well-
James would be here. James,
Well-
James. You notice James isn't here this year because I told you, there's been he's self-isolating and.
Well, again, that's been the world. Fortunately, I was one of the guys. Working from home wasn't an option for me. Especially it's like that one Simpsons episode. Oh, Homer gets to work from home, but he's he's supposed to be the guy in the control room. Yeah, they found out that didn't work so well.
Okay. Well, I'll let you get back to work. Okay.
Yeah. So
And then we'll.
take care, folks.
Thanks, Norm. Norm McEvoy, one of the originals, an Anime North original for sure.
OG.
Yeah. I guess we're almost done too. So, do you want me to do my Mitch Albom impersonation again to end it off, like I did last year? You don't get the
Sure.
reference, do
Well,
you?
I haven't read his books in a long time, to be honest.
But I always like to say do this, so I guess I'll do a final insult.
Oh.
I did quickly want to mention the panel this morning. And I'll admit it wasn't well attended, but I do think, well, you already know, well, there was a combination of factors that were clearly out of our control. The time, the lineup, we've already talked about that on the show. But I know there was one thing I could have controlled, and that was mentioning it more here and maybe giving you a better idea about what the panel would have been about. The panel was about one of Anime North's early contacts with the Japanese consulate here in Toronto, and how they were recruited to help promote an anime film festival back in 2000 as part of a one-time cultural festival the consulate was putting on. A big part of that story was how my own anime club, and actually Amy's anime club too, York University's Yama, also figured into that, since they, in many ways, helped pull Anime North into the project. So the story I told this morning also talked a little bit about the link between the two groups and the legacy and impact of all of that almost 22 years later. Part of the conclusion I come to now after telling the story is that while it's easy to say we didn't need the association between the consulate or Anime North and Yama to see where fandom is today and how it's burgeoning and grown, isn't it nice that this connection happened? And I think the association helped everybody, both individually as organizations and with each other to this day. In front of the table tonight is the plaque that the Japanese consulate gave to Yama in appreciation for their efforts. Anime North has a twin version of this plaque in their archives. The current heads of the club loaned it to me, curious to know the story behind it. And while they missed out on hearing the story this morning, well, they promised to hear the story for themselves in the very near future. It's just a small shame that they're not here tonight to watch the taping. I know that they were having a out for dinner as well. But nonetheless, this plaque is theirs, and to me, it's a reminder of the connection Anime North and Yama continue to share both directly and indirectly. Anyway, my thanks, as always, to Norm and Eileen McEvoy, Chris Nabelsky, Kathy Schutt, Andrew Kaidosh, and the hardworking staff here at Anime North. And as always, hopefully we pass the auditions and can get the call back again for next year. And if we do, we intend to return without fail.
But, do I say this part out loud? It sounds kind of bad, but like, usually you can secure this no problem, Mike. So, like, you just sound like a hypocrite there for a moment.
Nothing is guaranteed, you know.
Point taken.
I say that always with that in mind. Okay, that's all. That's it. That's all we have for tonight. Once again, if you want to contact us, animeroundtable@gmail.com, at animeroundtable, animeroundtable.com. We're hoping by the end of the year to be able to add more to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/animeroundtable, and our YouTube channel, if only because there's still plenty of year left.
It probably won't happen, to be honest.
As for the podcast side, please leave us a review, if you can, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, if possible, because good reviews might help the algorithm shine its light on us.
And you know what? We just had confirmation that listeners have found us on their own, so it really does matter. Please rate us. Please let us know you're alive.
Hello, I know you're there. I can see your breath. For now, we try to aim to provide something and put something up a few times a month, because life has finally gotten in the way of doing this show weekly or bi-weekly. But in any event, please give us a subscribe, a like, or a follow on any of the platforms we're on so you can be notified when we put up something new. Also, if you have a Spotify account, please check out the Anime Roundtable playlist for a list of music based on things we've mentioned on this show. The theme song is entitled Fubuki Snowstorm by Piko Masaki, which is the title track of her current album. Check out more of her music at picoinfinity.com or on Facebook at Pico Zen Music. So until next time, thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of Anime North. And then afterwards, join us again for episode 69 of the Anime Roundtable.
You know, I just realized if they're not doing the all-night track, that means the all-night hentai room is not going to happen then.
I think it already got canceled. On that note, of course, I had to say, next episode is episode 69.
So we're gonna talk about like doujinshi and H manga and like Bible Black and like.
I was impressed.
Basically, we're gonna
talk. You didn't say anything.
Huh?
I just said I was impressed. You didn't say anything regarding the episode number.
Well, no, because Kevin did it for me.
Oh, like Media Blasters is here again this year, and did they have Bible Black? Yes, they did. And a lot of other of their live action.
Got it, needed.
Yeah, like I saw someone buying, like I walked by their booth, and someone did have like a decent stack of hentai that they were purchasing. Hentai DVDs, no less, because almost none of that comes out on Blu-ray here.
We can talk about this again, like looking back on Nominoichi when we're a little bit more sober.